grief, spirituality, and the meaning of life. So today I'm talking about this and defining the difference between spirituality and religion. And one question that you may have is, how is this related to grief and loss, or why even is it important? Well, it's actually extremely important to the process and the healing journey through loss, because one thing that actually happens when we are bereaved is we lose completely all meaning to life. And one of those things is our identity also is stripped from us. So today I want to talk about the difference between spirituality and religion and share some of my experiences around this and how I came into my spiritual expansion of myself. So a great place to start would be the definition of spirituality. And so the definition of spirituality is the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or our soul self more opposed to physical and material items and things and objects. It is a shift in priorities as beings, as souls, that allows us to embrace our spirituality, our individual uniqueness, in a more profound way for the highest good of humanity. Basically, it's a desire to seek a meaningful connection with something far greater than ourselves. So that leads me then to the next question. Is spirituality and religion the same? And now for many of us, spirituality can have different meanings for us all. And yet it can be actually hard to actually tell them apart, because from my understanding, spirituality over time has a lot been connected to religion and connected to God, which is why the word spirituality can be triggering for people based on their experiences, good or bad, with religion and not being aligned, I guess, with God. So people will dismiss spirituality as being in the context of God, which is not necessarily true, because in fact, to be religious, it does not automatically mean that being religious makes us spiritual in any sense of the word, and vice versa. So welcome to my channel. My name's Melissa Newman. I'm a grief therapist, and I've created this channel so I can educate on all topics about death and dying. So basically, grief is less devastating for us all. So today, this topic, please know that this topic is shared, and most topics are shared through my own wisdom, lived experience, learnings and perspectives and insights, so that I can bring further information forward for anyone that is watching, so you can formulate all of your own beliefs and values on all things related to grief. So to get us started today, and talking about grief, spirituality, and the meaning of life, this is different for us all. So I'm not saying that what I share today is a one-size-fits-all, but please be open to any new insights. And as you are open to learning, always use your discernment to take what is true and meaningful to you. So let's move on and aim now to recognize the difference between spirituality and religion. So religion, the emphasis is actually on spirituality, and it is deemed as an important part of the faith process in religion. However, it's possible to be spiritual and yet not be religious at the same time. A religion is a specific set of beliefs and practices within a group or a community. Spirituality, on the other hand, is more an individualized just checking the time, more individualized practice. And it's got a lot to do with seeking a sense of peace and purpose and meaning in life. And it's about developing beliefs and values that give a greater connection to humanity, or a devotion to humanity, serving humanity. And so I myself definitely had, now in my loss, a desire to seek meaning and purpose with my life, because at that point I had to find what the meaning was so that I could actually move forward, because that current experience had stripped me from everything that I knew to be true and real in that, up until that point. So in all honesty, over my life, I've always felt that there was something always bigger than myself, yet I've never been able to realize it until now. And so what specifically drove me to seek the meaning of life was really to learn all about the afterlife, because I actually wanted to know where my son was, and I wanted to know, where do people go when they die? So this curiosity for me alone, and that of the afterlife, became the unfurling of my life's purpose, and with how I was able to then, with my life purpose, contribute to humanity in a more profound and meaningful way, which led then to, over time, creating my business and finding my niche, supporting people through the grief loss journey, especially trauma-related grief loss. So, with all that said, how can we discover the meaning of life and of ourselves? Well, firstly, to be able to discover all meaning to life, one must first understand who they are. And to know who you are, you must understand from your life experiences where you've come from, so that you can know where you're going to. And that's how your life purpose, in most cases, unfolds. So I felt for me that this was a journey of conquering my inner realm, rather than conquering anything external outside of me. I really needed to go within to really truly discover who I am in this lifetime. So what did this look like for me? Well, first it was to understand all of my life experiences up until this point of grief and loss, and identify what was important to me in life. I had to identify and redefine my values and my beliefs so that I could move forward. And one thing that adversity does is, adversity is our opportunity in life to be able to change and grow, hopefully become greater versions of ourselves, or the best version of ourselves. But it's never a one thing, because if you're always seeking a higher consciousness, which I am, it's an ever-evolving process. It's ever-evolving growth. And I'll leave it there because I can go off on a tangent. So, as mentioned in my previous video, now that we've realized that we need to go through and find the definition and the meaning to our life, we also, because we've had our identity stripped from us in that experience, we need to also identify who we are as people. So identity is again another huge part of the process of grief and healing. What actually happens, if I've said this before, is when we lose our identity, it's our ego self that we lose. I felt like it was a death of myself. I felt like my son had passed, and I also felt like I died that day. And what I came to understand what that experience was through the dark night of the soul was a stripping of the ego self. Now, what does that mean? In our lifetime, up until that point for me, we create this reality around us called life. We draw meaning from everything, all of our experiences that give us meaning to our life. Okay, it'll be our jobs, our family, the schools we go to, all those sorts of things. We give so much meaning to that. But if it's not whole, and if it's not, I guess, it's hard to say, so I might just not say that because I don't want to offend anyone, because that identity, when it's not our authentic self, our truthful self, where we're standing in our personal power, then we're almost not living life to our fullest. And we're not living as we should in service to humanity. And so when this ego is stripped away from us, and everything that we thought to be true to ourselves to this point, we realize in time, once we've healed through our grief, that we are never the same person after loss. And so there's something very profound and deep changes within us. And that would be for the most part. There are people that aren't able to move through this experience because they get stuck in the loss and the suffering. But if you're able to come through that adversity and redefine who you are, then you come into such a wholeheartedness and that yearning to find the meaning of life. What actually happens is we then discover new ways that we can contribute to humanity and to life. And this is where I think the connection of spirituality comes in. And this is why I've drawn on spirituality in my business sense, because I started to see that through all of my experiences over my entire life, it really has created or given me the opportunity. It has molded me into the person that I am, so that I was able to bring through this innate quality that is within me. It's within all of us. And so when you can actually define what that is, it's pretty powerful. And so for me, I did define what my purpose was, because I did dig deep and go on this inner realm of conquering myself so I could become the best version of myself. I had to continue to live. So I wanted to live in the most meaningful way because I didn't want to get to the sunset vision and have any regrets. So I now was beginning to be on this mission to contribute to the world in a much greater way. And so that then required a process of unlearning and relearning who I am. So this relearning meant I had to define what my now beliefs were and what my values were, because they change. They change over time, especially if you've had a life of challenges. The thing is, with values and beliefs, we've got so many that are programmed into us that are not even ours, for one. So you need to get rid of that stuff, because we're trying to live up to something that we're not. And that's actually extremely important to understand, so that you can actually come into your purpose. So we need to go through this unlearning and this learning to become who we're aiming to become. And so we have this curiosity to be able to, a curiosity for life. And I felt for myself that just like a flower, I started to unveil or unfurl my individual expression of myself. I started to discover it was like just this beautiful, well, no, not always beautiful because there was tears as well, but this unfurling of my true authentic self. And then once I came into that, I was then on the next part of the journey to find ways how I could bring that into an actionable service. So what were some of the things that I did to conquer my inner realm? Well, I definitely was into meditation. Meditation initially was just my escape to try to break free from the anxiety and the anguish that I was in. But what I found in my meditations over time was I started to connect into my intuition again. And I'm not going to get into this part of what actually took place with that kind of experience on its own, because I'm going to share that with the next week's video. But this then also led me where I felt I was getting lots of seeds and guidance, help, you could say, of where I could find the answers that I was seeking. So I started following my seeds, the seeds that were coming in through my meditation. Things were just popped in, and I started then reading books, self-development books, spiritual books to increase my knowledge. Anything that I was kind of guided in meditation to look at, I was so open-hearted to understand what all of this life was about. And so I started exploring on a very wide perspective of viewpoints from many people, including history and spiritual theories, to be able to discern what this all meant for me, so that I could see where in my world all of this was resonating and connecting to bring the picture together for me. And so what I also found through those meditations, and when I was starting to receive guidance, it raised the question, is there a God? Because at this point in my life, I stopped believing in a God. And this is the next video next week that I wish to share, because it's also another important process. If I put it in a generalized term, it's another important process to what's actually happening on the planet now with the new Earth rising. And with this spiritual expansion of many people on the planet now, where people are looking for this deep meaning to life, because adversities are showing up in their life, kind of encouraging them to take a deeper look to how they're living, that this one question, when I was going through my awakening and expansion of myself, things were happening that I was just like blown away with and thought, no way, this is not happening. I do not believe. And so my sharing of that particular journey, I want to share that next week, because this is all important part of the whole process of what's happening, not just when we're grieving, but for everyone on the planet, that is where we're being encouraged to grow into our most authentic selves. And so leaving it there for now, I want to just move on to continuing with the explanation, I guess, of how there are different definitions of spirituality. And here's what resonated with me. And I've only shared probably a few out of the many different definitions of spirituality. So mystical spirituality, this definition of this is actually based around a desire to move beyond or want to move beyond a material world and to move beyond our senses, the senses of our ego self, which generally is controlling most of our lives in the 3D reality. I just put that out there because that's what it is. And it's this mystical spirituality is also about moving beyond time. And the approach centers on personal relationships and a sense of unity with all things, meaning all of life. So a unity with nature and animals and Mother Earth and the planets and universes and realms and etc. So that's what the mystical spirituality is. Then there's the intellectual spirituality definition, which is what I've already mentioned anyway. It's about building knowledge from history and spiritual theories. And then we have service spirituality. And this is actually deemed more connected to religion. Now, I'm not sure whether I agree with that, and I'm about to explain why, but it's deemed to be more connected with religion because it's built on the premise of selfless service or serving others is a form of spiritual expansion or expression. Now, for me, that's not entirely true because I'm not part of a religious group, yet I have always valued selfless service as a high priority over my lifetime through my volunteering. Now, I was never connected to a religious group for me to do that or want to do that. And yes, I did have an upbringing in a Catholic religious background, but all meaning of that was not something I believed in because of my experiences. So service and spirituality, I don't believe is or should be just purely connected with religion, because you can actually be of selfless service for humanity and not be religious. So what I found through this journey of spirituality, not knowing that that's what I was going through at the time and that was the path that I was on, spirituality is very relevant when it comes to grief because we go on a natural curiosity for the meaning of life. And there's a natural yearning to find meaning and purpose with life. But not only that, because of loss and we're stripped of our identity, we need to recreate this new identity of who we are. And so spirituality is all those things, as I have found. And so that's why it's so relevant to the path of grief and loss, because without moving through that process, we may not ever be able to move beyond our grief because we'll be stuck in the suffering and the victimhood of it, and because we can't see a way forward. And so for me, spirituality is an important part of the process, and it's why I've adopted it, or the definition of it, into my work. One, because I do create a sense of belonging for people. That is super important. And I do show people how to find I guide people on how to find their purpose, because I've been there and I've done that. I know exactly how to do it. And not just purely from my grief experience, but because of all of my life experiences that taught me my whole lifetime for this one moment in my lifetime. And so when and if we are able to discover the meaning of life, it means we've been able to recognize our role in life, and that our role in life is far greater than the value we place on the menial things. And in most cases, it's far greater than we even thought possible. And that is absolutely true for me. So this search and curiosity for a greater meaning of purpose alone was twofold, because I found it helped me journey through my grief, cope with my grief, and it gave me hope and a reason to go forward in life. And that, to me, is such a powerful part and process to being able to heal through loss and grief. So then what it also highlighted over my whole entire life, how real human connection and belonging has always been something that I've always sought. If I look back on all my jobs that I've done and all the things, experiences that I've had, they've always been centered around kindness and love and real human connection with people. That is my absolute most important aspect and priority in my life. And so this is my innate quality. It's not everyone's innate quality, but people obviously have that. People will come into a different purpose. So don't think that even if you're moving through grief, that you're going to be working, for example, in the grief space, because that might not actually be the case, because you'll identify over your life these key moments and your core skills and abilities that make you you. And so this real human connection, for me, and a sense of belonging and creating that for others, is the one thing that gives me absolute meaning to my life. And I will do it. I do it selflessly. That's the thing. How many times, or have you heard over the years, how people turn their hobbies into their work? It's kind of the same thing. When it's this innate in you, where you have this desire for humanity, you will do it, paid or unpaid. And I can say I still do that. I can't help myself because it is just so in my heart to always serve humanity in any way, shape, or form that I can. And so today, to finish this topic on spirituality and religion and what that actually means, a favorite and inspiring individual called Brené Brown, her quote in relation to this says it perfectly. So I want to end on this today. And this is Brené's quote: "Spirituality, it is the ability to recognize and celebrate that we are all inextricably connected to each other by a power greater than ourselves, and that our connection to that power and to one another is grounded in love and compassion." So practicing spirituality brings a sense of perspective, meaning, and purpose to our lives. So I hope this has resonated with you. I hope it's helped you possibly see that there is a difference between the two, spirituality and religion. There's not one that is better than the other, and we can be parts of all. We can be parts of what we learnt in some of our religion growing up, because there could be things that resonated with us. So in a whole, it's what it means to you from all of your life experiences that formulate your beliefs and your values to this point. So I send you much love and peace upon this earth, and thank you for listening, and I hope you made it to the end. If you want any further information, please reach out. I will drop some links below. And because I find this channel is super important with the information that I wish to share, the only way that my information can get out into the community is anyone that is watching my channel. Obviously, liking, sharing, and subscribing to my channel will help the reach go further, even if it's just so that it helps someone through their grief and loss. There could be things that I can communicate that they might watch that will help them on their journey. So if it's for that one reason that you share, like, or subscribe, would be amazing. Not for me, for anyone that is actually experiencing loss and grief, so that the journey is so much easier. I thank you for your support, and look forward to next week's video. Thank you.